Charles, thank you for being here. I really appreciate
it's my
you coming
pleasure.
Sunday
You know,
morning.
like I said, I thought, I wonder if you'll be able to ask me before I have to, move on and stuff. And I'm like, and you did. I'm like, how did that happen?
Is that really real?
That is really
but
real.
I have to tell you on camera. I've already told you off camera. You taught my son.
I did.
He went to Sophia. He was on the new campus. It was the main campus, really.
Right.
But they had the international section. And out of all the classes, he truly told me, he said he enjoyed yours the most. And I said, why? I want to hear what it is. He said, Dad, he not only teaches, but he walks his talk. He's doing his doing. And right after that, we gave you an award for all the contributions you've given.
That's right.
I was president of the American Club, and I'm going, he's no joke. He's telling the truth. Because I've always been proactive with who teaches my kids.
Yeah.
We're paying a lot of money. Starting from elementary, you're paying a college tuition if you're an expat and you have them in international schools.
Right.
So I would always make sure of the teachers that were working with my kids. If I didn't like it, I'd even take them out to school. Because that's a lot to be contributing to someone that doesn't understand every child is a little different.
Right.
Or a person who's teaching that doesn't like themselves.
Right.
So I would look for that. So at the parent-teacher conferences, when the teachers would usually say this, tell me about your child. I'd say, before I do that, would you please tell me what he's like in the classroom?
Yeah.
I want to know how well you know my child. I know my kid, but do you? I'm not going to tell you something so you can regurgitate it back to me.
Exactly.
And I tell my wife, don't say a word. Let's hear what he has to say.
Right.
But my son was truly
I appreciate you saying
impressed
that.
with the way that you taught, and he doesn't know that you're doing this, and this is going to be a real treat.
Oh, really?
He watches my podcast, and when
does
sees
he?
you on, he's going to
He says, that guy's still around?
I said, my goodness. So let's start, Charles, with where you were born.
So I was born in Missoula, Montana, and my parents were originally from the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and born there. And then within a year, we had moved to Idaho and eventually out to Washington State, where we stayed there I went to elementary school in Bellevue, just a suburb of Seattle, and then Olympia, the capital of Washington State, and then we moved back to Twin Cities for high school.
You went to the West Coast and back to the Midwest.
Yeah.
Wait, are you the only child?
No, good God, no. There's 7 of us. So
I
I have 2 older sisters, 2 younger sisters, and 2 younger brothers.
Right, so you're the third.
I'm the third.
Okay.
And we have my youngest brother and my youngest sister are adopted. And then growing up, we had foster kids living with us.
How many years difference between you and the oldest?
2 years.
Between you and the oldest?
Yep, 2 years. So it went boom, 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 take a rest, boom, and then, let's go pick up an adopted one. Oh, the house is not supposed to make one. Oh, let's pick up another one. Oh, by the way, there's kids coming over from Vietnam, 1975. So let's go to SeaTac Airport and pick up a kid.
Wait, how old are your parents now?
My dad died in 2015. It's okay. He was born in 1930 and my mom was born in 1938.
He's 8 years older than your mom.
He's 8 years older. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how's your mom doing?
She's good. She's good. She's healthy.
So she's in her...
Still works. She's I guess...
80s? Almost...
80s. Her 80s still works.
Still works. Is she in Montana? She's still there?
Well, it was in Minnesota. So Montana was just kind of my grandparents had moved to Montana after the war.
On whose side of the family is that?
On my dad's side.
Your dad's side, okay.
Had moved to Montana after the war. He was a doctor, and then other relatives stayed there. So I think, my parents moved out to Montana, for work, my dad's work and stuff.
What'd your father do?
I only laugh because I've been recently asking my mom, interview questions like this. It's like,
really?
You married a really, really sketchy guy here. In the sense of this, because my dad, we find out later in my life that my dad was a Trappist monk for 5 years.
Wait, before he married
my mom, he was a Trappist monk for 5 years.
Now explain a Trappist monk.
Okay, so within the Catholic faith, there are different monks and different orders and
He was a Catholic.
We were all born Catholic and raised Catholic. And so within that, he was a Trappist monk. And you could probably see the guys wear the black front altar part and the white robe, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and pray. I mean, for 5 years. As I would tell people, it's not like selling Fuller Brush items over the summer.
But he was responsible for something else.
No, he lived in a monastery.
Okay.
So he lived in a monastery. And then he
In the States?
Oh yeah, Utah. There's a lot of monasteries in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah. So he lived in Utah. But I only found out later in life. It's kind of like, but that's my dad, because he's the kind of guy that's like, it's a different story. We're at the Minnesota State Fair. We go by the Boy Scout, table. And he's talking. My dad's he likes to just talk with people. Not really outgoing, but he's good at talking to people. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's cool, man." I go, "Oh yeah, I got my Eagle Scout." What? I said, "What?" He goes, "You didn't know?" "Yeah, I got my Eagle Scout." I'm like, "What? Wait, hang on a second. They don't hand those things out to everybody." That's my dad. Did
he come from a big family himself?
He had 4 brothers and sisters. So he had 2. He was also the third. He had 2 older brothers and 2 younger sisters.
He was a family of 5 then.
He was a family of 5. Maybe I got the order wrong there, but yeah, he's a family
and
of 5.
He was in the middle of them. Okay.
He was in the middle of them. So, so my mom was an only child. My dad came a big child. So we have this thing in our house that my mom wanted to have kids, but didn't know how to take care of them. My dad knew what it was like to have a big family and stuff. So it was a lot of social dysfunction growing up. We're all happy together now. We love each other now, but it was a bit of law of the jungle kind of growing up.
So what did he do? Okay, so he was.
So what he did, he eventually became a environmental scientist or environmentalist, and worked on the environment. He also taught at the University of Minnesota. So my dad's specialty was asbestos. So we could say he could come into a room and knows if it sucks or blows, because he'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah."
Now, sucks and blows in what way? Because
the movement of the air, is there asbestos in here? Is the asbestos going to come and come into your lungs and things like this?
So he was aware of that.
Oh yeah, that was his specialty.
So he'd tell you, okay, you got to get rid of all this.
Because
it was good
my dad was
was
never a guy. I mean, he would say there's dangers if the people asked him about it.
But if they didn't.
Well, of course they didn't.
Okay.
They wouldn't. But I mean, he wasn't out there. Gotta get rid of asbestos.
Okay.
He didn't have a campaign. No, my dad was a very, very quiet, humble person and stuff. Here's a different story. So I'm going downstairs in his house, and I see this plaque on the wall, and it says 2:30, and I go, "When did you run a 2-hour 30-minute marathon?"
How old were you when this happened?
I was like in my 20s.
Okay.
And he goes, "Oh, that was that time in Vancouver." I remember back to that time that my older sister and I went up there and haphazardly photographed him on this race. And he goes, "Oh yeah, that was a good day. A good day. You were in your 40s, had stopped smoking in your 30s, and you run a 2:30 marathon, and you say it was a good day." And there's no kind of this false humility. It was just my dad, It's just like
Charles. It sounds like what I was saying to you just before you came in here. People either focus on the length of their life or the width of it. Your father was busy dealing with the width of it. He made story after story after story. He was in the moment.
Yeah, my dad was one of the gifts that my dad gave to me. That my dad. If you look at pictures of our family, as the kids add, my dad gets unhappier. It's just his face. You're just looking like, this is a man who's made some wrong life choices, and so it was really a troubling relationship growing up. I'll talk about it a little bit in a minute or so, but as he got older, and I saw him come to Japan sometimes, he became more flexible, more curious, more open, more childlike about learning things. And that is a deep gift that I just embrace in myself, that it's like I want to, as I get older, to be more curious about life, more, oh, that's cool, wow. Because that was my dad, to a T and stuff.
But of course, when it was the pressures of dealing with other human beings that you're responsible for biologically. You know what I mean? And then some that you're not biologically responsible for.
My parents made some sketchy decisions in their life that we're all questioning now. We're glad that they stayed married, but on their 50th anniversary, right? They weren't fighting, but there was no celebration. It was like, we made it to the line here, let's about not,
Not overdo it, listen.
But, my parents.
That's interesting.
So my parents were also people that, if I told my dad, "Hey Dad, I killed someone," and stuff like that, he'd go, "Son, of course, Charlie, I understand. the man had the capacity to forgive and move on.
Wait. There was no discipline in the family. Wait, come on. I mean,
No, it was law of the jungle. It was law of the jungle, practically there.
That's how you remember it growing up.
When I was in the 6th grade,
Okay.
I says, Dad, what time is it going to go? It's 10 o'clock. This is middle school. I said, next time I says, what time is it going? He goes, no, I don't know. You set the time. My parents read these books on parent effectiveness training or something like let your child decide their life and stuff.
So you were never disciplined in the traditional way?
When I was in high school, before I got sober, I would come home for a couple
Wait, before you got sober?
Yeah.
Wait. Don't wait just a minute, Charles. Wait. Let's start like this. Your parents weren't hippies, because that sounds like hippies.
No, they weren't hippies.
But they went to the West Coast.
They weren't hippies. They weren't hippies, but they were very
loose and just
very
let
loose.
it be. Well,
but we went to church. We went to church every week. We went to church every week. I was an altar boy. I helped services in the morning several times. On a 6 o'clock mass or 6:30 mass and stuff. So
your community, was it big, small?
In Bellevue, there was a community of people there. It was in the late 60s, early 70s. There was community of people there. In Olympia, I had my people I hung out with. But no, it was, I would not characterize my growing up as feeling loved or cared for. I mean, growing up.
You didn't feel that?
Our family is, really enjoys being with each other right now.
So you came together?
We did come together.
But it took what? What did it take for that to happen?
A lot of my things in my life I write off as luck.
Okay.
Being blessed, being just, that was really lucky that happened. I think one of the pivotal points was when my younger brother got married in Seattle about 20 years ago. No, 25 years ago. Anyways, he got married and we all got together and realized, we do like to hang out with each other. And so we made a commitment to, after that, once a year get together, because I'd be here in Japan, to get together. And so we would do that. And we just, over time, really realized that we really do like each other and stuff. And so, that is good. It is good. And I think too, there's an element that because my parents, both of them, not just my dad more than my mom, but both of them, have an inability to hold a grudge.
So tell me, what kind of child were you when you were growing up? Were you more academic or were you more physical? I'm talking about elementary, junior high.
I thought I was like, I couldn't do anything. Oh, in junior high? No, I conned my way up through the 6th, 7th grade, and then Mr. Houston, this British guy who went to the United States, lived there, caught up with me and said, I don't know how you got this far, but you don't know anything. And he wasn't talking down to me. He was just basically like calling my con, because I was really good at conning people.
To get your grades to pass to the next grade.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like amazing that what's a verb? I have no idea what a verb is. What are these things here you call
it? Has feathers.
And he's the one. He's like, he sat in my room and goes, I don't know how your son got this far.
This is junior high.
This is junior high, okay. But he does not know the basics.
So how did that affect you when you went on to high school?
So, as I said, I got sober when I was 16. So I started using drugs.
When did you start
drinking?
You said using drugs or just
drugs?
Drinking?
Yeah, drugs and alcohol.
Now, was this in the Midwest or are you on the West Coast now?
I started, probably when I was really, really young, probably first or second grade, even probably before that, started drinking. And then that was Bellevue, and then went on.
With your family? With the family? Or
no, my family didn't know I was drinking.
No, but it could have been one of your sisters or brothers. It could have been one of your sisters or brothers.
No.
Okay, so it wasn't like that. It was your friends.
No, I don't think my sisters knew that I was. No, they might have. Who knows? We're in law of the jungle. They know they each went to their own and stuff.
But you said first, second grade. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I started drinking and then started using drugs when I went down to. I was probably still elementary. I started using drugs and then went down to Olympia and then hung out with some pretty.
Now, what kind of drugs are you talking about? Just out of curiosity.
I don't want to get.
Okay, you want to get into
that? That's okay. But just using drugs, and it finally got really serious when we went out to St. Paul, Minneapolis, and lived there, and I got into a gang and using drugs. And so, so 16 when I went through drug and alcohol treatment.
16.
Yeah.
Knew your parents?
They knew that. They were like,
okay.
well, that does explain a lot of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think on their side too, and I know my dad said this to me, that you appreciate as a parent, I really feel bad that this happened to you, that I wasn't there for you.
Did it went past him and it passed his radar completely?
He's got so much on his plate, I mean, there was so much going on, but it's also, part that just kind of a dysfunctional marriage in some ways, and so many kids in the house and so many things. I mean, I would kind of not come home for a couple of days and my mom wouldn't say anything. I come home, she'd go, I haven't seen you in a couple of days. Like, yeah.
She would say she hadn't seen you in a couple of days.
Yeah. Would be like, you didn't come home, and she's like, I haven't seen you in a couple of days. Everything okay? I don't know if she'd ask everything okay, just I hadn't seen you in a couple of days. Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
So
so when did you start to get together? Did you by any chance, did you graduate from high school?
I did. So this is how far out of touch I was. So I got sober in high school, which is really unusual. Be 16, getting sober, going to AA meetings with people that are twice or three times your age.
You did no sports or anything like that?
I played soccer.
When, in high school?
Yeah, played soccer in high school.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But I was also working. So the other odd thing, so I went to in high school, a Catholic military high school, which is like...
Like a Catholic...
Learn how to pray for him in the morning and kill him in the afternoon.
Right.
I shouldn't say that, but I should say it. That's probably... Anyways, and I never once got promoted there. I was at the lowest rank the whole time.
How long was that?
It was 4 years.
4 years.
4 years. So I got sober halfway through. That was my sophomore year, and then junior and senior. Still sober, went to, and had a really influential counselor there named Bob Colopy, who this totally offbeat type of gentleman that shouldn't even belong in that school, in the sense that it's like the school is all about this, conservative, but he was there. Partly because he used to be a brother, a Christian brother, and then he left the order and got married, but he came back to his counselor. But he was influential in so many ways that he wasn't your typical rah counselor. He was how you feeling? He had the ability, and I sit down and go, and within a couple minutes, just know how you're feeling. And then describe, you go like, and you could tell Bob, like my dad, later in my life, that anything that Bob would be like. And Bob was like, I think I had one drink once, and I didn't like it. Like, he was like Mr. Straight-laced, Mr. Nerdy, but
He didn't, not judgmental.
Oh, God, no. Good God, no. Good God, no. And he was good. So he was very influential in, because we had weekly meetings among the few of us that were getting sober at that time. And so at school, I was this F up, I was just, I was like, I've gotten sober, but I had no rank, didn't do well in academic. But outside of school, I started working at a restaurant at 14. And by the time, just before I got sober, I became this night supervisor. So I was supervising people twice my age. So this guy's weird thing is like, here outside my life, I'm doing some crazy things. I'm interacting with adults. I'm going to AA meetings. I'm dealing with an adult disease. I'm managing people that are older than me, my age. I'm responsible for a store at night. But here, it looks like you're a total, I don't know. Are you okay?
It's all boys school, of course.
It's all boys school.
Right.
And so at the end, when their graduation, because everybody tells you got so much potential. And I didn't understand that potential is untapped energy. Okay? So I get my rank and I go, hey, Mom, look, man, I'm number 106. 106 out of 115, isn't that great? Thinking the higher number's better. She goes, you idiot. That's at the bottom, man. I barely graduated. From high school. But as typical of my time, going through, our weekly meetings, group meetings, the people getting sober and stuff. And I go, I'm going to go see the ocean. So what do? I go down and see a U.S. Navy recruiter.
At what age?
I go in, and this is before I graduate. Just remember graduate. I go in. And I see this guy, big guy, and African American, and he goes, "Come on in, sit down, son, have a seat. What do you want to do?" And I go, "I want to see the ocean." "Well, I got a plan for you." Now, this is like, wait a minute, you went to a military high school where you did not cut your hair, you painted your shoes, you did not do well, did not conform, and now you want to go in the military? I just want to go see the ocean. And then people, you can see the ocean other ways. I'm like, yeah, but... And I went, and that's what changed my life,
How many years were you in?
4.5 active, and then 4.5, the remaining 4.5 inactive.
All enlisted?
All enlisted, yeah. Well, geez, I barely graduated from high school,
You came out in E what? You remember?
E5.
E5, okay. Mm-hmm. So that's, in the Air Force, that'd be a staff sergeant.
Okay.
4 stripes, yeah.
Yeah, I came out at E5, and so, when I went in, I loved it. I loved the discipline. I loved the structure. I loved the place that I could excel. And what I learned, you're in the military.
I was in the Air Force. Uh-huh.
So what I learned for me early in boot camp was they don't care what's going on inside here. As long as you're doing out there, that's it. They're not trying to get into your head.
Except you must conform.
Yeah.
That's it. You do that,
yeah,
you're good.
And that's okay.
And you give you your time, after that, it's your time.
But they're not in my head.
No.
And when I realized that, I thought, the second thing, first day in boot camp, go to the cafeteria, and I see the sign that says, "Eat all you want." I says, "You gotta be kidding me." Because I grew up in a household.
I understand where you had to get it when you could get it.
You get in, yeah. My desk is 1 foot on the table at all times and stuff. And so this is the law of the jungle, because you're sitting at the food, you're thinking like, okay, if that person takes more, then I'm not going to get enough. I'm going to be hungry later. But this is not. We're not friends here, okay? And so I go into a situation now. It's like that was my best therapy. I could eat as much food as I want, because I would go up until almost recently, not recently, a couple of years ago. I'd go to let's say a dinner with lots of food, and I was thinking like, is there enough for everybody? I don't want to make sure enough for everybody. And so it certainly influences my work right now as passing out food, but that was my first thing. I can eat all this? And they're like, yeah, oh man, this is great. I don't have to worry about anything here now.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. And so I applied for the U.S. Naval Academy. Uh-huh. Imagine that.
No, wait, after your 6 years?
No, when I was in.
While you were in?
Yeah.
And?
I didn't get in.
Okay.
I didn't get in because I didn't get among many things. So when I was going to get enlisted, they asked if I used drugs, and of course I said yes. And then because I'm on AA and Narcotics Anonymous is all about honesty, and which is pertinent, get it. But I've learned since that there are certain levels of honesty that are appropriate. Some things you probably
don't have to,
but
say.
I didn't, and so that I think was a mark against me. And so I went up for Sailor of the Year on my ship, and I won't say it was a shoo-in, but I was in the finals, and I got the question of, if you saw a guy smoking weed, what would you say? What would you do? And I said, well, I'd probably counsel him and find out and stuff, which is probably the thing you would do. Which is not the answer then.
Not at that time.
It's not the answer they wanted. And I knew there's like, now I know as I should say as an adult, but it's like, but as a young person, 18, 19 years old at the time, and so that's got me. And so it was a year-long process. I have no regrets of applying. I didn't get in. But what happened in the military that really transformed me is that we had these teachers that came on board, university teachers, and I taught writing classes. And I was on a small ship at that time out of Yokosuka.
What kind of ship?
A destroyer.
Oh, okay. I've been on a destroyer.
Yep. We were haze, gray, and underway.
Okay.
And, yeah. And he taught a writing course. And I found the beauty of how writing and education can help you reframe and rethink the world. And so when we went down to the Philippines, Subic Bay is this wild, just carnival place and stuff. Have you been down there?
No, but I know about it.
You know about it.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave that. But we go back on the ship, and the professor would say, so how does it feel that you're 19 years old and you have as much money in your pocket as someone's going to make in a year? How does it feel that you know that you can change someone else's life by marrying them and bringing them to the States? How does it feel? Write about these things. And I'm going like, wow. And that's what made me go, okay, I want to get educated. I want to go to university. In Annapolis I did, because I was more of I wanted to get off my ship. I was in a ship in South Carolina, there was docked nowhere. And my job was to sail to go places, and I'm docked in this swamp up the river and stuff.
How long were you there?
In South Carolina, 2 years.
2 years. 2 years too long, huh?
I'm from the north, okay? And as they would say, we do things differently down here. And I'm like,
you sure do.
Yeah, you do. I mean, it was. I don't say I hate it, but it was. My job was really to go out to sea. My ship was not going out to sea. But anyway, so coming back to that, I said I want to get out and I want to go to university. I'm just really hungry to learn.
So what did you do?
When I got out, I went to the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
And
you
then
studied what?
Well, at that time, International Relations, East Asian Studies. So I applied to go to Sophia University. I got out in 86, applied, got accepted in 87, came here, got some part-time jobs. One of them was scrubbing the ceiling of Tokyo Station. Well, that time people are still smoking, so the ceiling is like yellow.
That's right.
Yeah, the ceiling was yellow.
What year was this?
It was 86. 87.
Okay.
When I got accepted. And I fell underneath the GI Bill that was between the Vietnam and Reagan. It was the Carter, which was nothing. Give you like, oh, you got something? No, I love Carter, God rest his soul, but we didn't get much money. But anyway, so that money wasn't going to come through in time, and so I had to make a decision. I came back to the United States, embarrassed, ashamed, disappointed, because I felt like I'm going off to Tokyo to get my degree at Sophia. I'll be back in 4 years, and within 3 months I'm back because I didn't have enough money to pay for tuition. Scrubbing the ceiling at Tokyo Station is not going to make enough money. But that I learned later was a blessing in disguise, because while Sophia, as I later went there as an exchange student and also as a graduate student, has name value, right? My education at University of Minnesota was so rigorous and so demanding that I was like, wow, I'm so glad. Because, went to the University of Minnesota. I thought I was going to get into the liberal arts, and they said, your grades are not like liberal arts and stuff. You could start at the community college for 2 years and then work your way up if we'll let you see you get it. So I was like, what? Okay, that's where I got started. That's what we do. And so I worked 2 years in the community college at University of Minnesota and got bumped up to liberal arts, and then eventually came back to Sophia. When I came back as an exchange student in 91, that's when I realized the difference.
Because they were so much more rigorous than...
Sophia is not about education.
What is it about?
It's about a 4-year respite between the rigors of getting into university and then my business life, or working in there. It's a 4-year vacation, where it's a time for you to enjoy meeting new people, transferring between a child to an adult, but it's not about education.
Wait, so hold on. So you're saying Sophia, it had name value, however.
It's not about education. And I teach there.
Oh, that's interesting. But the name value does make a big difference.
Yeah, I remember I went in 91 and my teacher was like, I said, oh, are you going to talk about such and this topic? And he goes, well, why would I talk about that? I'm like, well, only because it's in the news. And he'd get more irritated about people arriving on time or being in class, taking attendance. And I'm like, University of Minnesota, you don't want to come. That's on you, buddy.
That's right.
I started my first international relations class in University of Minnesota, and she started talking, and I'm like, have I missed like 2 or 3 weeks? Because she's talking about things that she assumes we all know. And I'm like, what the heck? It's this same professor. She gave us she's okay. So for the final, I'm going to give you the 4 questions, and then I will choose 1 or 2 out of that. And I'm like, Jesus, a breeze. I look at the questions like, this is a thesis question. And so, and so I think it was really a hard reality for me to bump up that. We understand but it took me a while to realize, okay, this is the time, and it serves a purpose in Japan. Don't get me wrong.
I understand.
University of Minnesota, we would say the gate is very wide to get in. But to graduate, I think at that time, less than 15% graduate within 4 years. In Japan,
it's the opposite.
Yeah, as long as you don't burn down the building, kill somebody or something like that, you're going to graduate, And so that's a hard one for me as a professor, adjunct professor, teaching sometimes my students we have different expectations. For me, I feel like I'm giving you my time, and I love what I do, and I want to give the best I have here. And what they hear it is, your standards are impossible to meet. And I go, well, actually, they're just the standards of the university, like how many hours you need to study a week and stuff. 2, I've said I will be here lock and step with you the whole way if you have questions. And 3, I want to see you succeed.
What are you teaching?
I teach NGO management.
Okay.
And so, and I will tell them every time, I says, listen, every single of my course, 2 or 3 students will fail. And not fail because they didn't come to me. They'll fail because they thought they knew the material, or they plagiarized, or they cheated. And everybody I know, they're going like, well, that's not going to be me. Oh, that's no problem and stuff. And then inevitably, we have the situation and stuff. And so, that's, but again, it's different expectations, what the purpose of education is here. And so, that's where how should I say, I had struggles when I was here as an exchange student for a year, but I go, so luckily that I failed and had to go back to university.
Otherwise, you'd have thought that's the way it is.
I got a really solid education at the University of Minnesota. It's not a name brand, but I got a way of thinking about the world, attacking problems, not making assumptions. I remember one of my first assignments, I had to read the dang article 5 times. It was so dense and so full of different ideas and concepts in there that I had to read it like, what? But getting out of that, pushing myself through that, gave me some skills and stuff that, I think really helped me. Whereas, I did my thesis at Sophia. It was about the post-Cold War U.S.-Japanese military relationship. That was my interest. That's what brought me here, because I was in the military here and stuff. And I gave it to my professor, and I knew he hadn't read it. You know that vibe, they just kind of glance through it.
Right.
And I'm like, I said, well, I'd like to get this thing published. And he goes, oh, this is just a read and write. I'm, what do you mean? Oh, you just read something and write about it. I'm like, no, I want you to push me. I didn't say to him, but I'm doing I want you to push me and go, this doesn't make sense. It's not a good theory. You need to tighten this up here, get some backing there, so I can go back and make it publishable. Because it was 91. Cold War just ended. How are things going to pan out? We had just left the Philippines in the year before, Mount Pinatubo. So there's a lot of interesting things happening here, But that's, interesting that that's not the trajectory of my life. I went in a completely different direction when I finally arrived here.
So when did you arrive? When did you come back again?
So I came back one year for summer 90, do a homestay up in Hokkaido, Japanese, and then came back 91.
91.
So I wrote to a Jesuit.
With the intention to do what?
So I wrote to a Jesuit priest and said, I'm thinking about becoming a Catholic priest. If it's possible while I study, can I live in a religious community? So I arrive at Sophia, and I meet a Jesuit, and he goes, I got a place for you, but there's 2 conditions, 2 things you got to know. I said, first, he goes, it's in the slums of Tokyo. And I'm like, Tokyo has slums?
Right.
He goes, you'll be living with some brothers from India and the Philippines. I go, you got brothers from India and the Philippines living in the slums of Tokyo? I got to see this place, man. So he gives me the address, gives me the name of the station, and it's Minami Senju is the name of the station. Sanya is the area, Sanya Yamatani with the kanji. And Brother Lorenzo meets me there. He's this Filipino, very effeminate Filipino. Oh, nice to meet you. Come with me. And we're walking from the station to the brother's house. And on the way, I'm seeing people laid, sprawled out on the street, propped up here. People, I'm like, is he okay? And he goes, oh, I think so. And he just keep on walking. I'm like, this is like, you're like, am I still in Tokyo here? And so I lived with the brothers, Missionary Charity Brothers, Mother Teresa's brothers, for a year while I went to Sophia University. And that's where my life went completely in a different direction. Because, I met the men and I go, these are my people. Because at that time I was estranged from my family. I had left Minnesota and was estranged, and I felt these men were also estranged from their own family. I was still, I'm still sober today, but I was a recovering alcoholic. And so I understood how difficult it is to stop drinking. So these are two really touch points for me of connecting with these people and stuff. And we were both outsiders, and as a foreigner and them as who they are. So I lived there, and so I eventually, that's the trajectory of my life, went that way, and then stayed on for Sophia another year to study Japanese.
But you didn't want to become a brother, a priest? Well, you said the trajectory. You confused me a little.
That's
bit.
okay. So the trajectory was I was going to come here to discern, do I want to become a Catholic priest?
Oh, I thought you said you wanted to become one.
I did,
Okay.
but the Catholic faith is, and this is my dad too, is becoming a monk. They try to discourage you from these things to really see if you have the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the monk makes you sit in front of the temple for 5 days like that, but there's nobody like the U.S. Navy. Come on in, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
You want to put on a collar?
For a reason, yeah.
I got some smells and bells for you and stuff. I can hook you up with a nice chapel in the future. None of that. It's more like, is this really what you want to do? So I lived with the brothers and for a year, and it was a good experience. It was good. It was, really learned about their life and living together and things like this. But there was a cultural gap, and there's a gap of what I wanted to do and stuff. But I still felt like I'm really called to become, a Catholic priest at that time.
Okay.
And so I stayed in the neighborhood, learned Japanese, and then in the summer of '93, a woman casually dated. It sounds really bad, but it was true. I don't want to make it sound like, we were going to get married. She became pregnant.
Okay.
And so my whole world fell apart. At one, I'm this kind of nice guy going off to become a Catholic priest, and next minute I'm like,
Gonna be daddy.
could be daddy, but also going to be like, you really are you kidding me? Everybody, except for the brothers. Brothers didn't do that. They were still good. They still talked to me, but everybody else is like, you're person non grata. I don't want to talk to you.
How old were you at that time?
I was 30.
Okay,
I was going to say 29. I was just 29 when she found out. And so...
And she's Japanese.
She's Japanese.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it was just, my whole world was turned upside down, And I tried to do the right thing and trying to explain I want to do the right thing. And everybody's like, oh, you're just going to run away. I don't want to talk to you. My Japanese was so at that time. I remember the night she called me and told me, told me she's pregnant. And I was looking up at the sky, and it's like all the stars falling on top of me, and nobody wanted to talk to me and stuff. I called my mom. I had not talked to my mom maybe 2 or 3 years. You know what she said to me? Give me your number, I'll call her up. Didn't say, why haven't you talked to me? Nothing like that. She says, give me your number, I'll call her up. Tell her she's family. I just like, that is my parents to a T. I just...
They have a beautiful family. Really.
But yeah, and they did. They true to their word. They just always treated her and her daughter and stuff, as family and stuff like that. Never once. Why haven't you called? Did you know what you put me through? Anyways, so the mother and I went and to talk to a Jesuit priest, a Spanish Jesuit priest, and someone she knew who had baptized her, and at Sophia and St. Ignatius. Sit down, and I'll never forget. He goes, he's a Spanish priest, and he goes, and I kind of knew him vaguely, but she knew him very well. And he goes, congratulations, you're going to become parents. You're going to bring life in the world. That's a wonderful thing. And I could feel the vibe from here, like, yes, you're on my side. And he goes, now, getting married is a whole different thing. I can hear this going like, don't? Am I like, yeah. Because, even though I wanted to become a Catholic priest, I wanted to devote my life to something. I wasn't a playboy. And I wanted a family. Someone, whether it be the Catholic Church or this. And so, for me, it wasn't like, I don't want to get married. But for me, I was not going to get married just to save face or just for the sake of a child. I was very committed to that. I was committed to taking responsibility. But, I wasn't that. And so I thought if we could work out our issues, marriage could be a legitimate pathway for this and stuff. and it just turned into hell. Just turned into a nightmare and hell and stuff. And so, yeah, we never got married, obviously. And it was just really, really hard several years. I made the decision to stay here, but why am I here? I'm here only for my daughter. That's important, but I don't have a right to see her. She can be taken away at any time. If I go back to the States, I come home, I can be arrested, potentially. I mean, these are all the feelings that I have. And, as a parent at that time, to think that you could lose your child at any moment. And I know other men have. So I'm lucky with that. I persevere through humor, through perseverance, not cooperation on the other side so much, as, to do that, that I hung in there. But it was just that parenting and stuff that you could lose this at any time.
How old is your daughter now?
She'll be 29 soon.
29. Did you ever get together?
Yeah. I was with her whole life.
Oh, the whole life. Okay.
Oh yeah, I stayed here.
Her mother's doing okay too?
Yeah, Mama's doing okay.
And you guys have become friends?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is to get a story. This is the crazy part about my partner. Mm-hmm. My partner and Mama are like this. They meet each other.
Your wife? No.
My wife.
Your wife and
my daughter's mother
are good friends.
Yeah.
Are they similar in age?
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Is there a big gap? Like, is it more than 10
Yeah,
years?
there's a huge gap.
Okay.
There's a huge gap. There's a huge gap.
Now, you're a father now again, aren't you?
I got 3 kids.
Three kids.
Three of us have 3 kids, ages 2 to 12.
So you have 2 by your present wife?
Three.
3, so you have 4 kids.
I have 4 kids.
Right.
When they asked me that question, I said to the Japanese in Japanese, I said, yeah, I think there's 4 that I know of. And he goes, I'm just fucking with you, man.
I know.
No, this is the other guy in that interview and stuff. But yeah.
How old are your children?
So I have a 2-year-old.
Okay.
The house just vibrates when he's awake.
Right.
I got a 10-year-old, a boy, and then Ruby's 12, and then
Ruby's
Mary's 28.
And you have
Mary's 28.
2 girls.
2 girls,
Right.
2 boys.
Wow.
Yeah. I love being a dad. You know what I love most about being a dad is that I get to give to my kids what I never got. So it's twofold. That little Charlie, when I'm changing Jack, or doing something for them, I go, I'm doing this for little Charlie, and also for them. So it's a twofold for me. I just love that. I love that part about being a dad.
Let me ask, before I end the podcast, Charles, there's something I usually ask everyone. With all the knowledge, all the experience that you've been through, if you could magically go back in time and see the younger Charles and give him advice, what age would he be and what advice would you give him?
Invest in plastics.
There you go.
I don't know what advice I would give him. I would say it's gonna be a long, bumpy ride at times, man. You're not gonna think you're gonna make it through it at times. But don't give up the faith. Just remember, there's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. That'd be the one thing. I can't tell it's gonna be good. How you think it's gonna turn out? Look, if you would say to me when I got sober, you're going to live in a foreign country, start an organization that never existed there, start an industry, so to speak, that's never existed before, marry, have a child out of wedlock, and then stay, and then marry a woman from Hong Kong that's 16 years younger than you, I'd be like, am I still sober? You're still sober? And live in the countryside and live in a house that's 1 step above camping? Am I happy? Oh, you're really happy. I have no idea about that story, but I'm in.
Charles, you've done so much here. I'm gonna have to meet with you again. No, and then we'll talk about your foundation. We're gonna talk about what you're doing here, because I know that. But I wanted people to know who Charles is, and I mean you put a tear in my eye, man.
I'm sorry.
It's
I was going to say, I apologize for that, but
it's heartfelt. No, it's really heartfelt. It's really beautiful.
You're a good interviewer. You're a very good interviewer.
Charles, thank you so much.
Pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks so much.
I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast. Make sure you press like and subscribe. And never forget, it's all on loan. So continue to reach for the stars because you're too blessed to be stressed.